And welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Chris Calandra. Chris, a lot of things going on, and it's going to be I want you to take the lead today, so you tell me what's on your mind. One thing I will kick it off with is that the unemployment numbers are at their lowest number in 50 years. So what do you think of that?
50 years. That's incredible, and I'm impressed you know that, because as I've met with clients during the week, I've been doing this kind of trivia question, which is, when was the last time the unemployment rate in the country was 3.8% or lower? And most people have no idea. It's been
1969, yes. So I think it's kind of interesting. Okay, you haven't been around since the Mueller investigation concluded. The usual suspects are dummy, Blumenthal included. They just can't come to grips with it's over.
It seems like it. The other congressman, is it Swallow from California? He still is saying
Schiff.
Trump is a Russian puppet, and I mean it's
a little bit. It's enough is enough.
I think so, and maybe some of our listeners out there still think that he's a Russian puppet. But, you know, if there's no evidence after 2 years, and the Senate investigated, the House investigated, Mueller investigated, the press has certainly been all over this. I don't know if anybody could argue with that. And we really don't have any evidence. It's mostly secondhand, anonymous sources.
Well, it's not even that. Doesn't it scare you that forget about Trump? I mean, I don't want to get into it like a Trump show, but you had a duly elected president, and essentially it was a modern day coup attempt. Let's get right down to brass tacks.
I think so. And actually, I saw a headline earlier today. I don't know who it was attributed to, but some Democrat out there said, hey, let's forget impeachment and let's go win the next election. And I think,
what are they going to win on?
Well,
no. What are they going to win on?
I don't know.
Well, to me, they have any? Okay, you got the Green New Deal, which
yes.
Anyone that's not on acid would probably think it's. Although, who's that idiot from Massachusetts that endorsed it? He's been around forever.
I don't know. You have to be more specific with it.
He's a congressman, yeah. But I forgot his name. He's from Mass. It's like, hello.
It's not Kennedy, right?
No.
Kennedy from Mass. But, yeah, I mean, along those lines with the I have so much I want to talk to you about, Jeff. And maybe we could have some callers join us today. The line is 860-685-7700, 860-685-7700. You know who Nate Silver is? He's a
he's a pollster that predicted that. I think he predicted that Trump would still lose, didn't he?
Yeah, he still has that on his website. But he tiered the candidates, and he put in the top tier for the Democrats now. He put in the top tier Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And then in the second tier was Bernie Sanders. I can never remember. I don't know how to pronounce
Cory
the
Booker,
guys.
maybe?
No, what's the guy, the mayor from Ohio? Butttig.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know how to pronounce that. In the second tier, and obviously when you do tiers like that, there could always be some debate. But how do you not put Bernie Sanders in the top tier?
How does it poll? How does Trump poll on the first tier?
Donald Trump?
Yeah. Didn't he do it against Donald Trump?
Yeah.
So how does Biden poll against Trump?
I think in the preliminary polling, I don't know. I think I saw that he would nose out Donald Trump in the current polling. But I don't see how Kamala Harris would be an odds-on favorite ahead of Bernie Sanders for the nomination.
You know, I don't really, to be honest with you, to me, I disagree with Biden being ahead of Trump when it actually became in the campaign. I don't believe it at all. I think
I don't think so.
And by the way, the Democrats are starting to panic already.
Do you think? Because I can tell you, after doing the show for years with you and Marty and sometimes Eric, some of the best radio I think we did, and when I had the absolute most fun, and it's always fun, was when Bernie Sanders was on fire and Donald Trump was knocking down his GOP competitors during the nomination process. We got so many great Bernie Sanders calls. It was a really great time.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that Bernie Sanders can rekindle?
No.
No.
I think it was like what do they call it? One-hit wonders. I can't think of many offhand in terms of a music metaphor, but no, he's. I think his time has passed. He's like 77, and he's not the He's taxis a multimillionaire. The whole shtick is gone. Sorry, done.
Interesting.
And if he ever got elected, it'd be dangerous.
I would take the other side. My prediction would be that he makes a very good run like he did last time for the nomination. He's got the name recognition. He knows who he is. And a lot of these other candidates, I think, are still trying to figure out who they are, what their messaging is. They're not known quantities. Bernie Sanders, for all of his faults, is a known quantity. He knows what he's going to do. I think that gives him an advantage over a lot of these upstarts that are running. And he also can raise a lot of money. That's going to keep him in the game. A lot of these other folks will get crowded out quickly because if you can't raise money and if you don't have money, it's hard to stay in the game. Bernie Sanders will not.
I see Bernie Sanders. If he wins the Democratic nomination, he will be trounced in the general. America's, I'm sorry, not ready for a socialist. The Democrats are ready for a socialist because it's a socialist party now, but the general population is not.
So it's way, way too early. But if you had to predict who would be the Democratic nominee, I think there's, like 28 people? Mm-hmm. I think actually the guy walking on the street outside the studio, he's running too.
They're all running, yes.
What would you say? Who would you pick as the nominee in the way too early?
I really can't even say, and that's the truth. I think Biden is always the paper tiger. Like he's been going on for, 80, so it's like almost 40 years that he's been running, and he always starts out he's going to be great. He's not going to hold up to this. And his time has passed. The whole thing with the women thing, the Me Too movement, I don't see it. And the rest, I think if you think I'm biased, I think it's just my honest opinion. They're lightweights.
Does it surprise you that Biden has taken so much criticism? Because the criticism largely hasn't been coming from the Republican opposition. This is mostly infighting on the Democrat.
Yeah, but you're not realizing what the Democratic Party is now. It's not a sane. It's a crazy party.
So it doesn't surprise. Cause
no, they're nuts.
You.
They're insane.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So in order to get through the Democratic primary, you have to be first cognizant of any kind of splinter group, any kind of political correctness. That's the key. Economics, be darned. It's all about, basic identity politics. And God forbid you do, anything that Biden, he's not the brightest bulb in the Christmas tree. What he did was not sexual. It was just weird, whatever. But in the Democratic, I don't think he's going to be in the spotlight. I don't think he's going to make it.
Is that because you think he's old news and he's not part of the new party, or do you think that he's too mainstream and not?
Well, he's too mainstream, and then when he tries to patronize people with the thing about denouncing being white. I mean, the whole thing. If it was like, by the way, it's like a time warp. If you saw this like 30 years ago, you'd think this was a bad movie. I mean, a 75-year-old guy denounces being white. I mean, that's that. But yeah, it is funny, but that's the state of the Democratic Party. You have to denounce that you're white. And if you think that's stable, I don't know what to tell you.
So what are some of the other examples? Again, I agree with you. Less about Trump, just focusing on the Democrats. And if any callers would like to join in, love to have you, 860-685-7700. So let's just talk about, in your opinion, Jeff, some of the things that the Democrats are doing and talking about that you would put in the crazy column.
The Green New Deal, AOC, anti-Semitism, the list goes. I mean, can you think of one coherent policy? No, seriously.
No, not at all. And actually, even this week, not that I agree 100% with what you're saying, but one of President Trump's cabinet people, I forget who the name is, but he actually went and testified, and then some Democrats labeled him.
It was was it
Ben Smith or something?
Okay, yeah. He's Jewish, and they called him a white nationalist.
He's Jewish, and they called him a Nazi anti-Semite.
It's the whole thing. Like I said, I voted for Democrats in my past. Okay, no big deal. The party is so insane.
And I have too. Yeah.
Okay, the party is so crazy. it's a freak show. I'd love to hear from someone that's on board with it, or that's not, or maybe an old-time Democrat. And if you're Jewish, my God. I mean, that's a party that used to be, their base was, not their base, their pillars were African Americans and Jewish Americans. To be Jewish, to vote for a Democrat, I don't know what to tell you. You know, God bless you. You're putting liberalism ahead of your own best interest. And then as an African American, I mean, what do you want? A handout or a job? I mean, I don't see, Democrats are still going to get, but they're not going to get 98% of the African American vote. They're going to get 80, and I've heard a good analysis that they can't lose that kind of percent because they've lost white America.
80% now.
No, they're not going to lose. They're going to lose 20%.
Yes, you're right. I misspoke.
Okay.
So if they get 80% of the African American
they're in big
vote,
trouble, and they get then they get half the Jewish vote, even though it's a small, but it's a bigger percent. Maybe 5% of the whole Democratic constituency might be Jewish. They lose half of that. They're in trouble.
They would lose in a electoral landslide
and that's
80%.
why even Nancy Pelosi is the voice of reason now, because she knows that she's not stupid. I mean, you look at it.
Wow.
I mean, it's true.
Just think about how
but it's
outrageous
true.
that statement
She's
is. But I kind of agree with you.
And there's other people, even though Barack Obama said, who put this whole thing together, so to speak, the slide to the left. He's concerned. I mean, he can't win a national election. I mean, it's all going to be great. I mean, the reparations, paying South American governments so they don't export. The whole thing is so crazy. And I think what's funny also is Donald Trump's calling their bluff. He wants to ship, I don't know if you heard this, illegal immigrants into sanctuary cities. I think that'd be hysterical. That would be hysterical. Nothing funnier than limousine liberals sitting there, you know, eating sushi and having some Chardonnay, you know, then calling themselves sanctuary, actually never thinking it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then having huge boatloads or busloads. Oh, that would be hysterical. I couldn't laugh hard enough.
So some other examples of, I think, craziness is, what are your thoughts quickly on reparations?
It's ridiculous. What do you think it is? It's nonsense.
I would agree with you.
It's patronizing. I hope they go with it. I know now who's going to pay for it, and you know, when you're going to go back, then where does it stop? Other people shouldn't be compensated for misnomers. So,
going back to this topic as well as the discussion about how much of the African American vote the Democrats will capture in 2020. Did you see any of the testimony that Candace Owens gave?
Yeah,
to
I think it was
Congress
fantastic.
This week? Yeah. I mean, she is a force,
but she's a new force of the old racial carpetbaggers, the Jesse Jacksons and the NAA. Though that's old school. That's 1965. Okay,
sure.
Okay, their time has passed. The new not the majority,
yes,
but the new generation is Candace. Other African Americans, especially as more of them come into the labor force and actually get a taste of, if I know it's outdated, but the American dream. Well, yeah, they're going to lose. They're going to leave the reservation because it is modern day enslavement. We had an African American call up years ago who said it's modern day enslavement what the Democratic Party has done to the African American community.
Yes, and that echoes what Candace Owens said in her testimony. And so she founded this movement. I don't know if it's an organization. This movement, Blexit, trying to encourage blacks, African Americans, to leave the Democratic Party and to announce it and to be proud of it. So it's kind of a
Do you think it's never going to be the majority? And by the way, you can call in at 860-685-7700, 685-7700. Join the discussion. Obviously, it wouldn't be a real question, but it's not going to be the majority. But I think it concerns the liberal Democrats. People, voices like her, scare them.
Oh, it is a grave threat to their power base and their ability to get in power and stay in power.
I mean, how do they really logically run an honest campaign for African American votes? No, honest, not one that's based on fake racism and all these other kinds of identity politics levers that they've used for years, but to actually run a real honest campaign to say, we deserve your vote again? How do you do that?
I think you're hard-pressed to do that, and I don't see how they do it, but, they're...
Well, I know how they're going to do it.
Like,
I'm not talking about how,
yeah.
but I'm saying that in terms of if they ran a honest campaign without scare tactics, they are left with nothing.
You're completely disarming them because, as Candace Owens said, it's all about fear. Every election time, it's all about fear and what's going to be done to them. But now if President Trump was
Which is very
smart,
condescending, by the way.
Agreed. If Donald Trump was smart, and we could debate whether he is or not, I don't think he would do this. All he needs to say is, lowest black unemployment in the history of the country under my watch. You may not like me, but lowest unemployment
something? I like what you said.
Watch,
I like what you said. Do you know why? Because if he had any degree of humility, which he doesn't, he's a flawed person, obviously. If you just said that to even America, if you don't like me, I understand.
Agreed.
I'm not someone that would attract your affection, but look what I've done for you. Like
right.
It's like having a boss. You might not like him or her, but they're a great boss. That's fine. You're not their buddy.
Yep.
And same thing with Trump. And I'm flipping around, but I still don't understand what is the Democratic outrage about him. I mean, this is an honest question. What is it?
That he got elected. He's there. He's not supposed to be. Hillary's supposed to be there.
You think that's really
outrage.
It?
Yeah.
I think you might be right. Okay, but how about the whole? As soon as he got elected, they had the Women's March and the Resist movement. So I mean, how did that get so well orchestrated? Because when you look at him, it's not. I mean, you might hate him, and that's absolutely fine. But he's not a racist. I mean, he's not anti-Semitic. I think it's like half his family is Jewish or something.
And so the evidence that I would put to, say, our listeners, or what I say to when I speak to people is, I've followed Trump forever. I grew up in New York City. I grew up with Trump, who is a New York institution, is that he has been in the limelight in New York City, the most media-centric center of the universe in many ways. He was never accused of being a racist.
No, actually, Jesse Jackson complimented him for hiring a high percentage of African Americans in his. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, let's dispense with if you like Trump or not, audience. But he's not. He's not.
All right, and again, the evidence I would point to is he's been around a long time. He's a known quantity, and he was never accused of racism or any of these other things until he decided to run for office. And most of that actually occurred once he started getting traction. It's a political attack.
But doesn't it say a lot about the left, though? That's really what they are. It's really street tactics.
Very much so.
It's street tactics. It's right out of the Bolshevik playbook.
Sure, personal destruction.
And it is even with personal destruction on campus, on meeting places. You might have, on the right, you might have people on the left you don't like, but when they go to speak at there's not right-wing people trying to remove on college campuses and other places. You will get, and even in the workplace, you might get removed.
Sure,
you could be in trouble.
So another of the what I would describe as crazy left policy prescriptions is eliminating the Electoral College. What's your take on that?
Well, it's like you take your ball and go home because you didn't win the game. It goes to everyone gets a trophy. That's where they started, and that's how they are now. The people that grew up with everyone gets the trophy want to rearrange things because it doesn't work for them. The bottom line, it will never happen. It has to have 2/3 of the states agreeing to it. It's a constitutional amendment.
Which actually brings me to my point is that not only is it bad policy, and we could debate the history of why it's structured that way, but it's also one of those things that politicians say. That's like, if I ran for, middle school, 7th grade president, I said that, my platforms, I'm going to get rid of homework. It's not going to happen. There's no chance that's going to happen. So these politicians on running or something and trying to attract a voter base on something that is virtually impossible.
Well, it's not virtually. It is impossible. You're listening to Carnivore Radio, WESU, 88.1 FM in Middletown. The views of Carnivore Radio are not the views of WESU or Wesleyan University. I also find it troubling now that the Mueller report has been concluded? The Gang of Five, the impeachment fanatics, Blumenthal, the whole list.
Blumenthal, Schiff,
from New York,
Swallow, Gillibrand, Nadler.
Gillibrand's funny because talk about delusion. Her chance of being president are a little bit better than mine.
Yeah, that guy that I mentioned that was walking out front of the studio, he's ahead of Kristen Gillibrand.
And she's Hillary, a young version of Hillary. 10 years ago, she was for a border wall. She was for many. Now she's way left to say. She has no bearing. She has no real foundation. She's just opportunist. And who's delusional, by the way.
I agree. And you mentioned the Mueller report. Now, there's this guy, Barr, who's the attorney general. I don't know him from a hole in the wall. But sure, they go after him. I thought, personally, it was pretty impressive that the Mueller report was announced on Friday, that it was finalized and delivered to the attorney general. And then this happened on Friday. And on Sunday, Attorney General Barr puts out a summary. And he's skewered for the fact that he put out a summary. But what bothers me about the press today and the opposition to the president is I would suggest to everyone listening that if Barr didn't put out the summary, he would have gotten attacked viciously for not putting out the summary. What is he hiding? It's like no matter what you do, you're going to be absolutely attacked.
The bigger issue, though, is I'm sorry to tell the Democrats, the gig is up. The whole Mueller, the whole collusion. Even if you look at ratings like MSNBC, CNN never had any ratings, but Rachel Maddow, her whole show. And here's the scary thing. It was done for money. Do you know that?
Sure.
The MSNBC, their ratings were collapsing before the whole Russia collusion. They built their entire base their entire structure is based on the Mueller and
Sure.
They had no ratings, and their ratings were rivaling Fox, and they knew there was no collusion.
So let's explore this some more. And I know there was also that Project Veritas guy who caught, I think it was Van Jones from CNN, saying that the Mueller investigation was a nothing burger. And this was months and months and months ago. But, you know, you look at it from the business standpoint, I think you're on to something that is not discussed enough, is that their ratings have improved. So they've ridden this story as much as they can. And if this story ended, or if they backed away,
end. Their ratings are way down.
Well, it didn't end because they're going to continue to run the story.
But it doesn't have the same
reality.
Okay,
is
they have people that are that were just delusional. Yeah, they're going to watch it, but they lost that 30%.
Right.
They used to tune in every day to say, "Wow, what's going on? When is Trump going to get impeached?" And they know it's over, and they lost them.
But if they're trying to get viewers, what are they going to go to now? They have no plan B, so they're going to stick with plan A, even though it's losing. What else is MSNBC going to be positioned
I agree,
as?
but isn't it sad
of
being
course
naive that, okay, I know the news is always left of center, but now it's not even news. It's you don't really have news.
No, you don't really have news. And I'll also throw in what you said, the New York Times, which Donald Trump always says is the failing New York Times. Well, they were failing until he got elected. And they've had a renaissance since he's been elected because people are buying the New York Times to read about the New York Times hammering away at Donald Trump. So they are not failing anymore. They have this perverse symbiotic relationship, the press and Donald Trump. He's the best thing that happened to a lot of these media outlets.
That's the only thing that's ever happened to them in the last 10 years. They were dying. They were failing. You can join the discussion if you'd like at 860-685-7700, 685-7700. We're talking about the media. We're talking about the new Democratic Party. We're talking about the 2020 election that's coming up very quickly. The only thing that could trip up Trump, it's a mouthful, is a bad economy, and I don't see that really happening before 2020. What do you think?
I think it's increasingly unlikely. We touched at the top of the show about the jobs report. You know, we have the lowest unemployment in 50 years, and we've created jobs for month after month. Jeff, it started under President Obama coming out of the financial crisis, but we've created jobs for something like 120 months in a row. That's a record. unemployment's at 3.8%, and it doesn't seem to have any signs that it's going to let up. You're typically not going to have a recession, I don't think, when you have such a strong employment picture. So I think the odds of a recession are growing smaller all the time.
We do have a caller, so we'll see what's on the line for that. Caller, are you there?
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. What do you want to add to the conversation?
Yes, my name is Tom from Manchester, Connecticut. I'm African American and somewhat a moderate liberal, so I'm trying to take a, I guess, nuanced opposing point of view. I'm listening to the three moderators. When I agree or disagree with them, if I can't get in, I hope bring in a different perspective.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, thank you.
So what do you think about, let's talk about, we have all these Democrats running for office. In your mind, who are the top three that you would like to see as the finalists for the Democratic nomination? Who would your top three be that you'd like to see contest for the nomination?
Well, yes. I liked, let's see, Mr. Julian Castro.
Okay.
Cory Booker and
Julian Castro,
and
Cory
maybe
Booker.
a gentleman from Ohio. I guess he's
the mayor in Ohio. I can't. Do you know how to pronounce his last name, caller? Because I don't.
Bizarre.
But we know who you're speaking about. I got to figure out how to say his last name.
Yeah.
And then let me ask you this: we talked about. Jeff and I are in agreement on some of the policies that many of the Democrats are talking about are outlandish. We talked about the Green New Deal, reparations, eliminating the Electoral College. Yeah. Are there any policy prescriptions the Democrats are talking about that you'd prefer them not to talk about because it's counterproductive?
Well, not particularly. Probably a better approach when it's dealing with education, crime, and I guess cutting down on recidivism rate. But also as an African American, probably my forebears were slaves. Reparations, I'm not too sure about that, but I think America should realize that I feel like slavery was undemocratic and wrong, and should with African American history should be taught in our school system here. I think we have something to our legislator here in Connecticut because we helped to build up this country, defended as my late father was in World War II, even though we had racism and a segregated army.
Sure.
I came through it. My brother and I went to UConn, so I'm never begging the white man for anything, but at the same time, I'm not going to be seen as a second-class citizen. And I know you had mentioned President Trump, but some of the words he has said, I wouldn't say because he was being racist, but ethnocentric when he called S.O. countries, and I take exception to him. His father wouldn't sell to blacks. His father was a racist supporter of the Klan, Fred Trump Sr., and Republican Party has helped us in the past because I remember Frederick Douglass was one, and things changed in the 1930s, but there's been prejudice in the party for a while with Nixon, even Teddy Roosevelt, so everything hasn't been fine. And yes, the Democrats were very racist. They were lynching blacks and stuff. But words do have meanings, and there have been a rise in hate groups. And as a person of color, the Klan and Aryan hate groups don't have my interests at heart, and they want to try to keep America white because they're afraid of competition being out reproduced, and that's in the world too. We've seen in Italy they're pushing back on immigrants of color, and I think it's really rise of fascism coming from the past. Everyone talked about socialism and communism in the past, and that was wrong to oppress people, but fascism was just as bad under Franco and Mussolini, Latin America and Chile, and I feel like we need blacks in your party, but at the same time, I'm never going to be a stooge and lackey for the white man.
Can I ask you this question?
And I like Miss Owens. She does give a good message, but she's speaking for herself, and I don't live on a plantation. I can think for myself as a moderate black Democratic liberal. I take both sides. I do what I can in the town of Manchester. I've been speaking before in meetings in meaningful ways. I'm dealing with programs of equity right now. We're trying to move forward as a town, as a participant, by listening to all sides. So I think you can't label all blacks just belonging in one party. I don't believe, in welfare forever. You've got to help yourself, but also it's a crime to have homelessness there. You didn't have a chance to even go visit Flint, Michigan when the president goes around in pre-election campaign. He's got work to do. I mean,
can I ask you one question to
that.
interrupt?
I want him to succeed. I'm not talking about impeachment or Mueller report, but I think there was Russian collusion, and his son's a jerk, Donald Trump Jr. I don't know if anything will lead to him, but I think, the words do have meanings, and I'll criticize Mr. Trump, and it isn't fake news. I subscribe to The Nation. I read the New York Times, and they're holding his feet to the fire with facts versus his lies. So, I mean, I guess he's a beacon for white folks and certain people of color that voted for him, but I could speak for myself. I didn't vote for him. I don't hate him, but certainly, he's our president in name only, but he's a disgrace to the office. I'd take Mr. Obama over him, any day. At least this guy, grace of the
Okay, well, let me ask you a question
names.
about the whole thing in terms of...
hold on, let us ask you a question. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, so Obama, which you really like, understandably so, but what do you think of the lowest African-American unemployment ever? I mean, does that register at all?
Yeah, to an extent, but we're in the jobs because you still have service sector jobs that, it's improving a little bit, but we still have slight unemployment rate. The deficit is going up. I was just reading in the news that he doesn't want to mention in the war on terror and the so-called bill in the war. It's not adding up because you're cutting back on social programs. I'm not anti-rich, but at some point he wants to run it like a business, and you got to show some civility and really, listen to many sides. And he's just a stubborn man. I hate to say it, but he's very stubborn, misogynistic. He's not a good listener, and he reminds me of a Mussolini in a white shirt. I mean, he's not like a dictator tyrant, but he's a bully. And I'm going to
got a question before we let you go. Do you think that
I know you're going to have your
who do you think wins? What happens at 2020? Any predictions?
Well, I'm hoping that maybe within the Republican Party they'll have a contender that can go against and can bring Republican back to the center. Not just what you guys would call Rhino Republican in name only, but it has some decency. I can agree or disagree with this person, he or she, but at least get us back on track as pulling together as Americans, and that, you're not, a villain coming from south of the border. He's not talking about a wall on the Canadian border, or if you overstay your visa, if you're European or Asians. And with these hate groups and with that church burning in Louisiana, I guess there's a white suspect who was a police chief's son. So, I mean, they didn't show his mugshot,
right.
yet. But that does concern me when kids start calling kids names, and where do they learn it from? Racism might go back where you came from. And I'm not going to stand for it because I lived through the civil rights moment. I'm a second-wave baby boomer in my early 60s, college educated, but as Jews would say, never again. You're not pushing me back down, and I'm proud of my lineage and my affiliation. I didn't run away from it. And in plantation, you had your house servant and you had your field servants, and this is what divide and conquer was. We can fight against each other. They throw a bone out there. And after seeing 12 Years a Slave and this recent movie, if you get a chance to see it, Best of Enemies, about the School Resegregation Act in Durham, North Carolina in 71. But I want to end on this. This is the 65th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Ed, and I think we have to look at quality education for all. I know you guys would probably talk about vouchers, but we need to reinvest in the, public schools, and yes, private and parochial schools are still needed, but we have to take all comers, and I'm a public school graduate and proud of it, and I will speak out. And if whites don't like it, too bad. This is my freedom of speech, and I'll die for it.
Well, thank you very much. You have a great
caller. I'm so glad you called in, and thank you for your opinion.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care. Have a great weekend. Yeah. Well, it's good. It's always good to have. Yes, I think he was very articulate, and I think it seems like he's someone that did well, went to UConn, great school, and. Independent, and I think that's good. Independently minded as well, and I do think that in terms of unemployment, I think that is still a factor that I disagree with. I agree with almost everything you said. The only thing I might find issue with, like your opinion, Chris, is that I think the high degree of employment of African Americans getting back into the workforce, I think will have an impact in the election.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad he called. I was disappointed with his response to your question in the sense that I think it deserves more credit than he gave it. Not to say that it discounts all the other stuff he said, but it's almost like, but I think that's a pretty big yeah. And I think it's just a sign that things are better in that community, and that's good for that community, but it's also good for me, for the country as a whole, and it's something I think should be celebrated regardless of who was the president when it happened.
I agree. Let's see if we can get another caller on that. It's 860-685-7700, 685-7700. I think reparations will exclude people like Cory Booker, who's, I think, putting it up as a bill. That's just a bridge too far for even African Americans, reparations.
I think so, but, they're really trying to move the needle on that issue. It'll be interesting to see if they are successful. I have my doubts, but they're.
I mean, how much can they patronize people? Forget about just Africa, every group. I mean, it's becoming almost a caricature of itself.
I think so, and to me, it falls a little into what we talked about in terms of the Electoral College, because, look, the country at the Civil War was like 30 million. We're like 360 million people now, and we have so many ethnicities and who came from where, and different marriages between different colors, races, and you have different family structures. I mean, how you would even be able to do something like that seems to be
it's an electoral. It's never going to happen.
You think it's just to attract attention?
It's patronizing.
You think
it's patronizing? That's all it is. It's identity politics taken to an nth degree, and it's also something that when you have nothing to run on. Have you seen an economic platform from the Democrats?
There is no economic platform.
Have you seen a foreign policy platform?
Yeah. Well, let me say this. Their platform is, we don't like what Donald Trump is doing. That's our platform. I mean, it's not more complicated than that.
I don't even think it's Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump's the best thing that ever happened to the Democratic Party because that's the only thing they have. That's the only thing they have. If it wasn't for Donald Trump, if you had Kasich in there, they'd be finished. Finished. John Kasich, middle of the road kind of guy. If he won, what do they got? What do the Democrats got?
So let me ask you this, and to tie in with the patronizing, this is something probably the previous caller would disagree with, but let's say we had President Kasich. You think he's accused of being a racist? To me, there's no doubt. There's no doubt he would be accused as a racist.
Then that's a little shocking. I was going to say by some ultra-leftist, but I think you might actually be right. I think they're Trotskyites, the new Democratic Party, and I think they just take people out. And there's no intellectual debate. Those days are over. It's just you're a racist, and then that shuts you down. It's happening on college campuses, so why wouldn't it happen as part of the electoral process?
So my thought is that Mitt Romney was accused of being a racist. Before him, John McCain was accused as a racist. Before him, George W. Bush was accused as a racist. Republicans are always in presidential elections painted as racist. Now, maybe they all were. I know there's a certain amount of the population that they believe that they are. I personally don't believe any of them were, especially Mitt Romney. And I don't think Donald Trump is, disagreeing with the previous caller. I mean, heck, his father might have been, but I don't want to be judged by my father. And he hails from Queens, New York, and Manhattan, New York, which is an incredibly diverse place. Yeah. Bernie Sanders hails from Vermont. I don't have anything against Vermont.
Yeah, I have a problem. I don't have any problem with Vermont. 860-685-7700, 685-7700, 685-7700. I think Bernie Sanders is the quintessential phony. Quintessential.
Oh, yeah.
No, quintessential. A multi-million, if you really believe in this socialism, okay, Bernie, you have several $1 million. Start a homeless shelter in Vermont. What's the problem, Bernie? It seems like capitalism is pretty good for Bernie.
Sure.
Right? And also, during the Cold War, he spent his honeymoon in the Soviet Union. And as a Jewish politician, he's never come out once. He actually endorsed Omar. So he'll go anywhere the wind blows as long as it helps himself.
So Elizabeth Warren also, which hasn't come up, I don't think she has a snowball's chance in heck to win the nomination either. She put out her taxes because, they very much want Donald Trump to put out his taxes, of course.
Which would be the dumbest idea ever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But, she and her husband made over $1 million a year.
No, it's all one big joke. Bernie Sanders, like I said, he was writing pornography, didn't really work a day in his life until he was 40, still on the public dole, became mayor of some Vermont and then whatever. Yeah, I mean, he got pretty rich off the system, didn't he? How do you get that rich? How do you get that rich when you're a senator, you make $200,000? How do you get that multimillionaire? Well, obviously, it works for him.
Yeah, I mean, let's say it works for all politicians. You want to become
not all politicians are claiming that they're socialists.
No, I understand.
I complain. No, it's a scam. He's disingenuous.
So you
and
don't think he's a true believer? Because I feel like he's
if you're a true believer, why do you need 3 houses? Why do you need? And if you're a true believer, open up a homeless shelter somewhere. Obviously, he's talking about everyone else giving their money away. Give some up, Bernie. Give it up.
All right.
Feel the burn. Right? 860-685-7700. Big phonies. All Elizabeth Warren, big phony, patronizing phony, and she knew what she was doing with the whole claiming that she was a Native American. She knew she wasn't a Native American. So you don't know if you're an Italian American? No, do you know that?
I do know that.
Okay. People know who they are. My family talked that they were astronauts. I think I'm an astronaut. There you go. So my father loved astronomy. I thought I was an astronaut. Yeah,
so
please.
You talk about phony before. So I want to get your opinion on this. So the Jesse Smollett thing in Chicago.
Disgusting.
No.
But that's racial carpetbaggers too.
Yeah.
Instead of it does claim fake racism, not because for his own self-indulgence.
To promote his own career,
yes,
and to get him a better deal with his TV show.
Yeah.
It was all self-promotion.
And there's some people in the community that still, and he had the audacity to come up and actually claim his innocence again.
Well, here's what I want to ask you about. So I mean, we could relive the whole thing, which I think would be good. But here's what blew my mind, because inexplicably, they let him go with no prison time. They decided they were just going to let him go, which I think was a travesty of justice. You probably agree.
Yeah.
But then the city of Chicago said, "Hey, listen, we spent $130,000 investigating your
a bankrupt city, yes,
okay, your phony crime, and he has chosen not to pay them the $130,000
and went away on a vacation."
And now they're suing him. If I'm Jesse Smollett or I'm his PR guy, I think I would be like, "Hey, dude, you got away with something. It could have been really bad for you. Pony up the $100,000 and move on."
Okay, a lot of actors. I hate to break this to you.
Okay, give me some bad news.
Are not Mensa candidates. You know who said that? Howard Stern, and he was so correct. Listened to his show years ago, and he was like, "You see these actors, and they play a part, the intelligence officer of the sea, and you believe that that's them. And then you listen to them in an interview, like, what do you think about it? And they're like, huh? Okay. So he is not, I'm sorry, good-looking guy. Sure, he's a great actor. I don't watch his show Empire. I'm sure he's great, and I'm sure people believe that he's an astrophysicist, but he's pretty stupid.
I mean, it seems to me
you're really $130,000. That's like what? That's like half an episode that he would get paid.
I was just looking at jail. And now I walk away scot-free. I just have to stroke a check, and this goes into the past. Mm-hmm. I'm stroking
and then
the
went
check
on, and then he went on a vacation. And I'm sorry.
I mean, he's got the money.
Wait a second. If I was a real victim of racism, let's say an African American guy that got beat up by some nutcase white guys, whatever, I'd be really PO'd that this rich guy is using racism as a vehicle to embellish himself. To elevate himself. That is despicable. And the crime was so brain dead. And to claim you're still innocent. What do you want? The only thing we didn't have is like a video, and they probably do have a video somewhere of it actually happening.
Yeah, it is incredible. The whole thing was incredible, and I'm just completely perplexed how he doesn't, because he's got to be a man of means, I would think, is stroke the check and be done with them instead of having the city of Chicago sue him. Talking about that, we also have Lori Loughlin, the actress from Full House, that had this whole...
Fuller House, I think. I never watched it. I think it's called Fuller House.
Well, it was the original Full House.
Was she on the original?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was Jesse's wife.
Okay, I never watched it.
I'm embarrassed that I know about
There you
Full
go.
House history. But anyway, now she's also on Fuller House. Well, she's going to see the judge, and she's like signing autographs and hosts this like rally outside with her fans.
Rally
and
for
everything.
what?
Well, I don't
She's
know.
a victim?
Yeah, exactly.
Is she a victim?
And now she's pled not guilty, and she's looking at jail time. And I really have a feeling that it's going to end up badly for her. I have a feeling she's not going to be as lucky as Jesse was, and the charge is dismissed. But here's the brazen part. Do you know this? And of course, we're talking about they were bribing people to get their kids into school.
And by the way, their kids were dumb. Yeah. Dumb kids. Dummy kids. You have all that privilege. I'm sure they were just valley girls, valley guys, dumber than rocks. And you know what's really awful? They go to prestigious schools, dumber than rocks, and some poor kid can't get in because Dumb and Dumber got in.
Yes. And, you tie this all together. The African-American community, the people in this country that are lower economic status, that are
but
not
this
given a
person
fair
of
chance.
Fuller House.
Lori Loughlin is stealing it from you.
Yeah, but she'd be the first
And
little.
she's supposedly on your
the
side.
typical liberal. I'm sure she's out there talking. I'm sure before this happened, she was talking about how horrible Trump was. He was She's the racist.
Absolutely.
There you go.
But she got caught. That her and her husband got caught because they tried to deduct the bribes. They didn't get caught because they were doing the bribe. They got caught because they wanted to deduct
Do you think they're greedy or what?
I think that's pretty brazen that I'm going to bribe to get into. I think her kids went to USC. And, you had all this crazy stuff. They would take a soccer player and take the head off the soccer player and put their daughter on that picture and say that she was part of the soccer team. All this crazy stuff. But they really got caught because not only were they bribing, they also thought they were entitled to get a tax deduction, which is really incredible for...
Oh, and that's why their kids
ultra liberal about taxes. She's bribing to get into a school and trying to get the government to subsidize it.
Well, wait a
How's
second.
that for
No,
hypocrisy?
Elizabeth Warren. She only paid 20%.
Yes.
No, she only. So wait a second. I thought she's the one who's saying the rich don't pay enough.
She paid 20%. She gave $50,000 to charity. $50,000 is a lot in
No, it's not.
absolute terms, but it's not a lot when you're making $1 million.
No, it's not a lot when you're running for president, and no, you will. Like moron Hillary, sorry, she is a moron. She's doing speaking engagements. Hey, Hillary, I got news. Hello. Why don't you not do them the year before you're going to run for president so you can claim that you're a person of the people? And
here's another example of the hypocrisy that I see is with Elizabeth Warren, with her claiming that she was Native American. She took a spot at Harvard, and she took a spot at other institutions.
By the way, she's finished.
She took a slot.
Finished
that
or
was,
not?
That was earmarked. Oh, completely finished. She took a slot that was earmarked for a minority. Whether you like that policy or not, the policy was in place. She's a white person that stole that slot from somebody else.
And do you think she knew what she was doing, yes or no?
Oh, of course she did.
She's claiming she's done. She's done.
She's done. I can't believe she's running for president.
That's called chutzpah.
Yeah.
I mean, brazen chutzpah. Like, just go away. Like Jesse, write the check, like you say. Go. Don't do a press conference saying that you are appalled by the. No, you're not appalled. You did it. Everyone knows you did it, and you're done.
And I have a hard time when hypocrites, like Elizabeth Warren, like Jesse Smollett,
like Bernie,
like Lori Loughlin,
like Bernie,
talk about injustice when they are often, to me, bigger perpetrators than any injustice that I've ever done in my life. I didn't bribe anybody to get my kid into school. And if you saw the tuition bill, you would know I didn't. It's just completely unfair. And it also, by the way, I wish we had more time for this. But if I bribe a kid and I get my kid into Yale, shouldn't the Yale education be able to flush her out if she's not qualified? How is it that these families were not worried about bribing and getting their kids, their undeserving kids, into Yale, and not worried about failing out of Yale? What does that tell you about Yale?
Not much.
So,
we got a caller on the line, though. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm there, and I'll be real quick because I know it's the end of the day and you guys want to go home for the weekend. I think the Democratic Party is done.
Done.
I think once the Inspector General's report comes out in July, and William Barr digging into whether you want to call it surveillance or spying, I think once it's dug into and they find out that they fabricated the affidavit they got used to get the FISA warrant, the Democratic Party is done.
So
wait before you, Chris, before you go ahead, is what do you think it is? I think the whole gang of four, okay, Blumenthal included, they're finished as well. What do you think, caller?
They're definitely wrong.
Shift,
they're trying,
the whole
they're
idiot,
trying to spin a narrative that doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think it does to Blumenthal? I know he'll get reelected in this crazy state, but I think his shtick is over too.
I'm hoping it is. I'm hoping he does not rerun.
He you know, we always talk. I talk sometimes about the Rolling Stones, why they're doing it at 75, blah blah blah, because they love the attention. He's like an aging rock star. He cannot go without. He's never met a camera he didn't love.
Oh, I agree 100%. And you know, him on the railroad platform almost got whacked by the train. Shows how much he had to get in front of the camera.
Well, thank you so much, caller. I don't know if I share your optimism about anything happening with the surveillance that took place in the Trump campaign. I wish it was different, but I think that will go nowhere. But thank you so much for calling. I hope you have a great weekend.
I think it will.
You do. You really do, huh?
The Woods procedure, which is when they get the evidence of what they have, they're supposed to verify all the facts in the dossier. And it's already been back November 2015 where there was hints of this stuff coming out. And I'm not talking at CNN, New York Times. I think once they start digging into it and they find out that.
I think, caller, you have a bad connection.
I think it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the call. I'm sorry about that it ended badly.
We're going to just cut it short because he was fading in and out.
Really?
But,
okay.
But I don't know. That'll be something we'll get to see play out, Jeff, whether the counter investigations of investigating the origins of what became the Mueller report. I believe there was a lot of bad faith that was done. I truly, truly believe that. But I don't think that'll ever come to light, and I don't think anything will ever happen.
I think it'll come to light, but when you have a media that's hell-bent on, I mean, you CNN or MSNBC, your whole brand identity has become to take out a president. What, are you going to have a fair and open mind? And by the way, long-term, penny-wise, dollar-foolish, it ruined the entire CNN brand.
So I want you and I to do a version of the show on election night where we hang out, election night 2020. Yeah. We'll get some beers, get a pizza, watch the election, and do like a live
I think
recording.
That'd be it. But you don't think in CNN that they've ruined their brand long-term?
Oh, God, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's a MSNBC did not ruin their brand because it was built on, it was a left wing.
They had nothing going on.
And like someone said, they put on their uniform every day. Everyone knew they were a left,
yes.
left of center. CNN, I remember during the Gulf War, they were, the news leader, whatever their tagline is. And
absolutely.
I think Zucker destroyed that.
Destroyed it.
It's over. I think, and all the ratings. You ever see their rating? How does this guy have a job?
And their talent, too.
No, but it is. I used to watch CNN. I really did.
Sure.
It's unwatchable. No, it's unwatchable.
Agree 100%.
I mean, 2 hours of Anderson Cooper and then Jay Tapper. It's like pretty brutal. But it was a good show. We had a couple of callers. It's going to be a decent weekend, I believe.
I can't wait to get outside and enjoy some of the beautiful spring.
Yes, and so you really do think my ear problem is temporary?
I think your ear problem is temporary. If Jeff's not here next week, that means I was wrong. It was a serious problem with his ears.
There you go.
But I think you're going to be fine. That's what Dr. Calandra says.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris. Thank all of our listeners and our callers for calling in. And thanks for listening to Carnivore Radio, WESU 88.1 FM in Middletown. And we'll be back next week. Take care.